This movie is weird as fuck, and it's also one of my top favorites of the year so far, so let's do it. Oddity is about this woman named Danny who's married to this psychiatrist named Ted Timmis. They, for some reason, decide to buy this country house in the middle of fucking nowhere. So Danny's alone renovating one night because Ted works nights, and this strange man comes to the door. And he tells Danny, when you had your back turned, somebody slipped into the house and they're in there with you right now. Let me in and I'll help you. We don't find out yet whether or not she let him in. But we do find out that Danny was brutally murdered that night. And it turns out the guy at the door is Olin Boole, and he is one of Ted's former patients. And he is convicted of the murder of Danny and sent back to the psychiatric hospital that he was just released from. But not long after he returns, Olin is found brutally murdered in his room. So now we jump to a year later and we meet Darcy, who is Danny's twin sister. Darcy owns an oddity shop that her mother left to her, and she's also blind and clairvoyant. So Ted goes to visit Darcy in the shop, and the two of them make tentative plans to get together for the 1-year anniversary. At this time, Ted also tells Darcy that he's seeing somebody and she is moving into the house with him. Darcy's like, that's fucking weird. Ted also gives Darcy a present. And it turns out that it is Olin Boole's glass eye that was found after he was murdered. We see Darcy take this home and touch it, and she has a fucking breakdown. We don't know why yet, but remember, she's clairvoyant, she's sensitive. And then we see sometime later, Darcy arrives at Ted's house unexpected. And there she meets Ted's girlfriend, Yana. Before Darcy gets there, Ted and Yana were talking about this large wooden crate that was sent to them by Darcy, but it has a lock on it that they don't have the key to. So when Darcy gets there, she opens it, and we don't see what's in there yet, but by Yana's reaction, we can tell that it's something fucking strange. So Ted ends up leaving for his night shift at the hospital despite Yana begging him not to go because she doesn't want to stay here with Darcy alone. Yana had plans to go back to her apartment in the city but is not able to because she can't find her keys. So now she has no choice but to stay the night here with Darcy. Yana goes upstairs for a minute, and when she comes back down, this fucking thing is sitting at the kitchen table. Turns out this is what was in the crate, and she asks Darcy, why did you take it out? And Darcy says, I didn't. So eventually the two of them sit down at the table, and you can tell that it's just very tense. And at this point, Darcy tells Yana that Olin Boole did not kill her sister, because she says, my sister would never let a strange man in the house in the middle of the night. Now we flash back to this scene, and we see that Darcy is indeed right. Danny never let that man into the house. When she didn't let him in, he said that he was going to go to town and get help. And we see that Danny was actually murdered by a masked figure, so Olin was right. Somebody did slip in the house behind her, and that's who killed her. Darcy says that Danny's real murderer is this orderly that works for Ted at the hospital named Ivan. When Yana asks her how she knows this, Darcy pulls out the glass eye and she says personal items work best, so when she touches things, she can understand what happened behind them. So Yana calls Ted freaking out, and she calls him from this balcony area above the main living room. Darcy has dozed off, and when Yana looks down, the wooden man is now looking up at her. His head's completely moved. This causes her to drop her cell phone over the balcony, which completely destroys it. And then she comes downstairs to investigate this thing. And inside of these holes in its head, she finds some weird shit, including a vial of blood, a tooth, and these pictures of Darcy and Danny. Darcy wakes up and yells at her to put everything back. So Yana eventually goes upstairs to her room and locks herself in. So she gets in bed and she's looking through this camera that she found that was Danny's. And while looking at a video, she looks up and sees a ghost of Danny in the corner of her room. She runs downstairs and she ends up finding her car keys in the crate that the mannequin was brought in. She gets in her car and gets the fuck out of there. So at this point, Yana had called Ted before her phone broke to tell him hey, Darcy's saying this crazy shit. She's saying that Ivan is the one that killed your sister. So eventually he returns home. The house is completely dark and he finds Darcy alone upstairs. And Darcy is like, I know what you did, bitch. She tells Ted that she knows he was having an affair with Yana while Danny was still alive. And to get rid of her, he hired his orderly Ivan to come kill her. Darcy also reveals that she is the one who murdered Olin when he returned to the psychiatric hospital out of revenge and anger because she thought that he was the one that killed her sister. But when she touched his eye, she found out that he was innocent. And we see what really happened is that Ted arranged Ivan to murder his wife. While they were making this plan, Olin overheard them through the vents because he was still in the hospital before he got released. So when he got released, he went to Danny and Ted's house to try and warn Danny and save her, but she didn't listen. So Darcy tells all this to Ted, who tells her that she is delusional and he thinks that she needs to be committed and she should come to the hospital with him. And to prove this to Darcy, he says that he is going to leave his cell phone there and he is going to go and meet with the detective who worked on Danny's case. And together they are going to call Darcy and go over the evidence again. So when my phone rings, you go grab it and you pick up. So he does that. Ted leaves, Darcy stays there in the dark awaiting the phone call. What Darcy doesn't know, again because she is blind, is that Ted removed this trap door in the floor. We had seen this trap door way earlier when Danny was renovating the house. And this trap door is directly in the path of where Darcy would need to go to get the phone that's ringing. So sure enough, he gets back to the hospital and he calls his phone from there. And when Darcy gets up to go grab it, she falls through the fucking trap door. So now we know that Darcy was right and Ted is a trifling motherfucker. So he sends Ivan to go to the house to make sure that Darcy is dead. He finds her there lying in a pool of blood under the trap door, still clinging to life, but barely. But what he also finds is the wooden man. Darcy, with her last dying breath, does this thing where she connects her hand to her heart and says, "We are connected," and she dies. But in doing this, she seemingly animates the wooden man, who then proceeds to stalk Ivan around the house and ultimately attack him. Sometime later, Ivan wakes up strapped to a hospital bed and he has now been committed because he was talking crazy about this wooden mannequin that came to life and attacked him. Ivan tells Ted that he wants a priest so that he can confess to Danny's murder. He's like, "I won't tell him about your involvement. I just need to clear my conscience." So Ted's like, "Yeah, okay." And instead he releases this other patient who happens to be a fucking cannibal. And he sets him free into Ivan's room and presumably kills him. So then we see Ted go back to the house and we hear a voicemail saying that Yana has clearly broken up with him. And when he gets to his doorstep, he finds a little package from the Odity shop. In the package is this little bell that Darcy had earlier. Darcy had explained that this bell was haunted by the spirit of this bellhop that died in a hotel, and anybody who rings it will summon the bellhop's vengeful spirit and be killed by him. So Ted, being a little stupid fucking worm boy who thinks he's untouchable, rings the fucking bell. He looks around and sees that there's nothing around him, and he sits there triumphantly thinking that he once again got away with this. He begins to relax and he smiles as we, the audience, see the spirit of this bellhop behind him. And the movie ends with us assuming that the bellhop kills Ted.
A set of telegram rooms were exposed recently in South Korea. Each room is another name of a middle school, high school, or college in South Korea. The way to get into these telegram chat rooms is you submit a set of photos of any girl or woman. It has to be someone that you know personally. So think classmates, siblings, friends. Then you have to provide personal details of that person in the picture. Name, date of birth, occupation, school, grade, age, Instagram handle, phone number, and if possible, a full-blown home address. In addition to that, you need to provide 10 pictures of them. So usually the pictures are a collection of that person's Instagram, Naver, Facebook, Kakao social media posts, as well as pictures you might have taken in person of them, because these are people they're supposed to know. To get entry into these Telegram chat rooms, you have to send in pictures of your acquaintances, friends, or family. Members of the group chat will then make deepfake videos using those pictures. That's why it requires 10, because the more pictures you provide, the better the videos. Netizens have made a list of all the schools that are being impacted, and there are dozens of middle schools and high schools, and even some of the top Ivy League universities in South Korea listed on there.
Middle schools.
Yes, but the youngest ones that netizens have found to be victim are elementary schoolers.
What?
Yeah. There's even a picture that includes the names of 66 different victims, and next to their name, they list their school, and it's almost like an inventory count. Someone in the chat room even responds, "If you send me the names and the pics of the bitches who are not listed above, I'll make more humiliating pics and videos of them. If I'm horny enough, I'll even go and find them in their schools and stalk them." In one Telegram channel, there are more than 70 individual chat rooms you can go into. Each chat room is another university, another school. So they have over 70 schools that you can, quote, visit through the chat rooms. That particular single Telegram channel, in total, it's slowly been uncovered that over 400 schools have been affected, which is about 7% of the entire nation's middle schools, high schools, and colleges put together. That's an insane percentage to be affected by this, and that's just what we know so far.
Hey, Dad, look at Carly!
Get up here, Carly! What the hell was that? The hell was that?
Greg, pass this idiot.
one of the signs that someone's ready to leave you is when they better themselves too much.
Better
Right
themselves
away.
too much.
Think about it. Because remember you said what? When you grow too fast, you're probably gonna outgrow
Outgrow them, yeah.
them.
Oh,
You get what I'm saying, right? So, theory, one of the clear signs or one of the red flags is someone's changing fast right before your eyes for a reason.
Yeah.
You think that's true?
Yeah, I believe that's true. But also, I believe that if you guys have a good relationship together, you grow together as well. Because what's the point of a relationship is to grow together. But if one person, is dramatically changing, I'd be scared still.
But what would you do?
I would have to try and change as well. Like, I would try and grow as well. Like, better myself, get a better job if I didn't have one, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Do you think it happens a lot or not? This is just like rare cases.
No,
I feel like this happens a lot.
A lot, yeah. Because in usually my past relationships, we were outgrowing each other somehow. It maybe just be like, oh, your hobbies don't match to my hobbies, or our future or his future, her future doesn't look the same as my future. So it's like mindset wise, health wise.
If you are inside your home with the lights out, do not look outside your window. Turn on your lights before you look through any window. Do not leave your home if you see a figure outside. Even if he is turned away, do not look at him. Lock all doors and windows before turning off all lights inside your residence. Hide in a small space and call authorities. Do not move from hiding unless you hear an unfamiliar voice. If you do hear a familiar voice coming from inside your home, do not move. He is inside. He is inside. He is inside.
Have you ever heard about Recession Pop?
No.
So recession pop.
Is that Charlie XCX?
No. So it's like whenever there's a recession or the economy is down, the BPM of songs get higher and pop music popularized.
Oh,
so
word.
remember that your boy Jay Sean, like
What?
when he said the thing going down.
Down.
He had a bar in there. He's like, I'm down like the economy.
Oh,
Fam, if you really bag it,
that song came out 2008.
Yes.
Oh, fuck, that came out 2008.
Yes. So
2008, the economic depression.
Yes.
Oh shit.
So since I think like soon they said it's a recession. I have a theory that pop music is gonna become very popular again, and the clubs are gonna because remember, people listen to pop to escape from the economy, from their jobs.
Yo, Gavin, bro.
Yes.
Yo, COVID was the last one.
Yes.
Who popped out? It was fucking Doja Cat. Oh shit! Yo, you heard her song? If you let me.
I'm not
so.
Yes.
Holy shit!
I'm not even a listener of Charlie XCX like that. She's so smart for what she's doing right now, because it's all pop escapism music.
It is.
Bro,
Damn.
if you're younger, ask your parents about the clubs back.
The Vigil is a really good horror movie that could have been a great horror movie if it wasn't for one thing that it does that just bugs me. The story revolves around Yakov. He's a young man who recently left the Orthodox Jewish community. He reluctantly agrees to serve as a shomer, watching over the body of a recently deceased elderly man. This mostly one-location horror movie had a bunch of creepy scenes, verging on scary, and it really excels at building atmosphere. The way some of the scenes are shot, they're angled perfectly, and I could feel my heart racing. I felt like I was constantly just waiting for something scary to happen. I also appreciate that we get a religious horror movie that wasn't based around Christianity. As I say, there's something that stopped me from actually loving this movie and just liking it, and that's the annoyingly loud sounds at all of the scary moments. It ruins the creepy atmosphere that I built before, and instead of being scared, I'm just more startled and then I end up frustrated. However, saying that, I still highly recommend checking The Vigil out, and it was really interesting reading more about the customs behind The Vigil after the movie. That added an extra element of enjoyment to the story once I knew a little bit more about it.
hear about the McKenzie incident?
McKenzie Shirilla, guilty of murder.
This girl, McKenzie, her parents got called to the hospital. She was been in a terrible car accident. What they didn't know, what police were about to tell her, she's a mass murderer. This is the whole story. This is what happened. She was at a party with some friends. They're doing whatever. They drive from the party house to go to somebody else's house and just to hang out. It was her friend, and her boyfriend. And they're all watching like South Park, you know, late night. They're still kind of... One of the guys, her friend said, could you drop me home? Since they were still like sloshed from the party, the two guys, they fell asleep. One of them was in the back seat. The boyfriend was in the front passenger. What they found out, using like the GPS tracking on their phones, the direction she took went away from the friend's house and made a detour down a different road. What the tracking showed was that she was going like 90 miles per hour into a middle of nowhere, into a wall. Damn. The boyfriend, the friend, she survived miraculously. She was the only one with her seatbelt on. What do you think happened?
I don't know. What the happened?
What they found in the car was some mushrooms, like whatever. But what they really figured out was...
If you're a big fan of the Saw franchise, you're gonna hate me by the end of this video. So we all remember Saw 2. Which, side note, there's an argument to be made that Saw 2 is better than the original Saw, but that's another video for another day. Now there's a lot of memorable scenes in Saw 2, but there's one that sticks out to me personally, and it's this scene right here. The needle pit scene will forever live rent-free in my head. Now on that note, you will never believe what I came across today. This is an actual needle used in the needle pit in Saw 2. What's better than that? It's fucking signed by Shawnee Smith. And it even came with a letter of authenticity from Twisted Pictures. So somehow today I became the owner of an actual needle used in the needle pit in Saw 2. Signed by the queen herself, Shawnee Smith. I am not a fan of needles whatsoever, but this is pretty fucking cool.
I heard, I don't know if this is true, Sahar, but people are saying this is true. Girls will only date somebody subconsciously that they think could kill them.
Whoa. What?
Yeah, subconsciously.
That was the most Carlos sentence I've ever heard in my life.
I thought it was going like... No.
I thought it was going a completely different direction.
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Exactly. So check this out. So I'm pretty sure they did a research on this. Like, this is real. That subconsciously girls will go after people that they think could overpower them or overtake them.
My ex definitely could have killed me.
For the reason of basic needs of survival.
Yeah, it's like protection, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you think a person could protect me, then I feel like all girls and stuff like that.
If you don't think they could take you out, then how are they going to take someone else? Yeah.
Do you think you guys could kill your girlfriends?
Whoa! Now you're setting that's some crazy.
You just said it. You just said subconsciously they dated you because they know.
I don't know. I would have to ask my girl if she, but probably.
But subconscious means we don't even realize.
We don't realize it. We don't realize it.
Yeah.
But do you think so? Do you think that's true? I think it's true.
To be honest,
because survival-wise,
low key in the sense that I'm like I look for someone who could protect me, like in any way. Like I want to be with someone where like if we're on the streets, nobody would even try to like rob us because they're scared of him. You know what I mean? So I guess in a way, yeah. But I don't think I'm out here thinking like, could he kill me?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Perfect.
You don't like.
It's just subconscious.
It's just subconscious.
I think that could be true. Yeah.
So what's the guy version? What's the girl version of that?
Girl version.
What do you think?
I think it's a girl, like someone who could take care of you, like when you're like sick and like baby you.
This is probably the weirdest movie I've ever seen. Let's do it. 964 Pinocchio opens up and we're in some sort of laboratory and we see this person or this thing being lobotomized and then like sent out into the streets. Turns out this thing's name is 964 Pinocchio and he's a cyborg. So he's just wandering around the streets of Japan and he stumbles upon this girl named Himiko. Himiko is homeless and lives in this like abandoned building and she sees this fucking thing and is like, you can come live with me. Eventually we find out that Pinocchio is a cyborg schmeck slave and he was created by this company for this client, but he was unable to keep it up. So the client found him to be useless and just released him into the wild. Now, when the director of the company learns about this, he's furious and he's like, we need to go find this thing because if we don't, then people might find out what we're doing here and we don't want that. But the reason that Pinocchio was lobotomized before he was sent out was so that he has no memory. And we learn that Himiko also has no memory. So she starts to bring him around and he just acts like a fucking rabid animal. Again, he's a cyborg. Through much effort, she eventually teaches him how to say his name. And this sparks some sort of breakthrough and he suddenly like becomes self-aware. The two of them kiss and like get it on. Apparently he's able to keep it up now. And this triggers this absolutely vile metamorphosis. And he literally starts just leaking like blood, pus, and vomit. Like I said, do not eat when you're watching this movie. And the same thing happens to Himiko. There's this like disgusting vomit scene in a train station. It's almost reminiscent of possession. But eventually through this metamorphosis, her memories return to her. So she goes back to Pinocchio post-metamorphosis and pretends like she's going to help him. But instead like betrays him for some reason and shackles him to a slab of concrete and is like, haha, I tricked you. Again, I really have no fucking idea why. But eventually he ends up escaping and he like runs through the streets of Japan as everybody's staring at him. And I swear to God, this scene of him just running goes on for like 20 minutes. Meanwhile, the director of the company and his minions are still trying to find Pinocchio. The director literally like only eats maraschino cherries. I say that because it's going to be relevant later. And eventually Himiko ends up teaming up with them to help them find Pinocchio and destroy him. So the director and two of his minions end up like running into Pinocchio in this field. And he proceeds to just charge at them and he kills the director by like disemboweling him by punching a hole through his stomach. And out of his stomach falls like hundreds of maraschino cherries. This movie's so fucking outrageous. Pinocchio leaves the other two alone and they're just left to like weirdly fucking mourn over the director's body. They like gyrate and stuff. I don't fucking know. But then Himiko shows up and confronts Pinocchio in the field, and she instructs him to tear his face off, but instead she tears her own face off, which then reveals this. So she's a fucking cyborg too. So Pinocchio proceeds to attack her and rip her head off and then attach it to himself. So the two of them end up just being this weird hybrid cyborg, and the movie ends with a voiceover just saying like, I love being with you. Yeah, weirdest shit I've ever seen.
The Zodiac killer is a guy who killed a bunch of teenagers. As soon as he killed them, he wrote letters to the police and said, oh yeah, I just killed another person, come get me.
Every single one would have encrypted codes.
That's why it's called Zodiac. Yeah.
They couldn't figure out what he was trying to say
Exactly.
all the time.
I don't know if it is true or not, but on his bed, somebody said that he confessed that he went to the movies to see the Zodiac. So he was in the movies watching a movie about himself killing other people. He was just there. He was psycho.
Yeah.
So this guy comes out on TikTok.
Wait. He's on TikTok?
He said that his grandfather was Richard Hoffman.
Oh yeah, okay, that is. Yeah, I thought you said Richard Hoffman was in the video.
No. He reveals every family pic that he has. You know, like when the police does sketches of the killer? Matches exactly. So bro has receipts. And Richard was a police in the area where the Zodiac killed a bunch of his victims. But this is where it gets crazy, because this is how I knew it was real. In the letter that his grandfather wrote him, he spelled until with 2 L's. And in the Zodiac's letters, whenever he spelled until,
he had the same mistakes.
Same mistakes.
You guys want to hear some really weird stuff about frequencies?
Yeah.
Do you know the man named Robert Monroe?
Nope.
No.
This guy, he figured out the science to use certain frequencies to control out-of-body experiences. But what's creepy is that, and he would speak to entities
Oh no.
that would teach him how to use frequencies.
Yeah.
Nikola Tesla also talked about learning in his sleep, like out-of-body experiences and learning from entities. All these brilliant people all talked about how they learned stuff while they slept. But what's creepy is that the CIA basically bought his patents to start the Project Stargate, which is, he said, you can travel across the universe and you can go into different dimensions. You can go to the subatomic level. You can do whatever you want. But people always talk about when they leave, there's always an entity that is showing them around and teaching them stuff. They're versions of yourself. This is what he's being taught by this entity. He's like, and he stated the same. He's like, you can be your own god.
Heard that before.
Red flag. It's like the same concept as like taking DMT and stuff. Like, I think you really are accessing the spiritual world, you know? They're going into this spiritual realm and they probably should not belong there.
Yeah. These are some of the most overhyped horror movies of all time. If any of these are your favorites, to each their own, but these do not do it for me at all. I do not find The Stranger scary or good, and I don't think I ever will. The attackers going after the family just because they were home just never really did it for me. I know it's supposed to make it more realistic. It could happen to anyone. The fact that there is no motive is terrifying, but to me, it's just not. I have suffered through the first 3 Paranormal Activity movies, and I will not be watching any more. They feel like nothing but cheap jump scares, and they never get me. Like, I just am bored the whole time. Sinister started off so strong. I really liked all of the videotapes showing all of the crimes that were happening. But then once they revealed that it was just a creepy pasta monster, I was so bored. Like, you look me in the eyes and tell me this doesn't look like somebody's creepy pasta boyfriend OC that's talking to insert your name here. Now, before you take out your pitchforks, I really, really like Hereditary. The performances are phenomenal. I love the story. I love the themes. Mwah, chef's kiss. But when this movie came out, it was easily one of the most overhyped horror movies of all time, like as far as the scariness goes.
Here's my official ranking of all the haunted houses at Universal Studios Hollywood Halloween Horror Nights for 2024. And yes, we will dive into the 3 you absolutely will not want to miss. In last place, we have Monstrous 2, The Nightmares of Latin America. Now, if you know anything about Halloween Horror Nights, you know that the timing that you get to go through the house sometimes doesn't give you the best experience. And I think that's might have what happened here. Because on my walkthrough of Nightmares of Latin America, there was a lot of dead space where actors should have been. So I might have caught it in a change of actor kind of time, but most of the set pieces were still pretty cool. Next up, I have the Universal Monsters Eternal Bloodlines. Now, this one did have some great moments. It had some great costumes, some great set pieces, but with this year's stacked lineup, it just wound up on the back half of my list. Now, this might be a hot take, but next up I have the Weekend Nightmare Trilogy. Now, I will say, this is coming from somebody that's not a personal fan of his music, so I was less attached to this house going in. But I will say, there were several moments in this house, the practical effects, the gore, what was happening was just chef's kiss. The intro to this house was really sick too. You should go check it out in my previous video. Next, I have Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. Now, I like the Ghostbusters. I'm just not a mega fan, but this house, the outside, the intro was super cool. A lot of the actors and actresses in this house looked like who they were supposed to be playing. I do genuinely feel that if you are a massive fan of this franchise, you are going to love this house. Next up is the sleeper house of the night for me. It was Dead Exposure Death Valley. There's always one random haunted house that's not licensed that is just super sick, and for me personally, Dead Exposure was the one for the night. This one had several rooms with these like zombified chimpanzees that were just going crazy. The gore, the practical effects, it was just like, this is so sick. But here's where we get into absolutely do not miss this house for any reason. We've got A Quiet Place at number 3. This one straight up had the best animatronics of any house that I went to. This house is full of full life-size animatronics of the monsters that you see in A Quiet Place. Just on that alone, a visual treat for the eyes. I felt like I was in the world. At number 2, I've got the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Legacy of Leatherface. The best way that I can describe this house is like a Leatherface multiverse. If I remember correctly, almost every single iteration of Leatherface was in this house. Plus, they had Grandpa, they had the Cook, they had Hitchhiker, they had Chop Top. And every single person looked almost exactly like they did in the films. Just, it was fantastic. But the best house of the night, and honestly, it's not even close, Insidious the Further. From the entrance to the house to the musical score, they used the soundtrack, they had the Tiptoe song, but honestly, this house was legitimately terrifying. They hid the scares very, very well. Like, they got me not once, not twice, but 3 times just inside the house. No spoilers, but the ending to this house was just, somebody has footage of me running out of the exit for sure, because holy shit.